As humans, I think that we're conditioned to get failure wrong. What do I mean by that? I think that we are taught as a society that failure is inherently a bad thing and that there's nothing good that comes from it. But today, what I want to do is walk you through almost everything that I've failed at in my life, tell you what I've learned from it. So, my first real failure, I guess this was kind of verging into when childhood was becoming adulthood. But when I look at my first real failure, it was what I originally planned to do for the rest of my life. When I was 16 years old, I wanted to be a professional place kicker. So during high school, I was absolutely driven and focused on being the best I could be. At place kicking, I was on our high school football team. We were extremely competitive. It was a big football culture in the town I was from, in the state, and kind of the region where I'm from in the US. American football is huge. So was really dedicated and focused on that for a couple of years and did well. I was, ranked within our state and I had the accolades and the summer camps, these sorts of things. But at the end of my senior year, it was a day before a game and we had a practice and I was trying to put a little bit of extra effort forward to impress a coach. I slid, I broke my ankle, and I was out for the rest of the year. And basically, little did I know, but that kind of put a damper on this dream of playing professional football. And after that, any kind of collegiate looks, any kind of collegiate communication I had with any teams to play at the next level ceased after I broke my ankle. So that was my big first failure. Moving on a couple of years, I was finally out of high school. And I decided, you know what? I'm so used to all of my external validation coming from athletics. So why not continue this? So I grew up with an uncle that was a professional disc golfer. And for those of you that don't know what it is, you take a plastic, like a long distance frisbee, and you throw them on a course similar to golf, and you try to make it, in these little baskets. And there's actually kind of an underground professional disc golf scene that's actually growing quite huge now. But after I graduated high school, I had a lot of free time on my hands. I didn't go to college. I was working a dead end job. And, my source of gratification at that point was through disc golf. So I played all the time. I was dedicated. I played in the local tournaments. I started playing in the state level tournaments, started becoming pretty good. So it was a point in my life where I just had the extra time and bandwidth to really dedicate myself to, this new, this new sport. So I practiced at night. I set up lights so I could practice outside. I was super dedicated to it. It was something that I really loved and I, was seeing success in. I was seeing the success. It was really pushing me to go forward and kind of worked and worked and worked. But I think after a while, I realized all of that time and effort that I was putting into something wasn't really giving me, it didn't really have a future in it. There are a couple of professionals that make a full time living, but even the top professionals in the world work a daytime job. So I realized after a few years, after I had become somewhat good at disc golf, that I was going to hang that up. And it was on to my next chapter. So the next couple chapters after that, I wouldn't really say failures. I would say that those were more, you could chalk those up as successes, I think both from a societal perspective and from a personal perspective. After that, I went to university, paid my way through the lower level community college in North Carolina, and then went to a 4-year university. I graduated. I got the really good job, working in New York City. I had the title, I had the suits, I had the success. Um, that was when my very next failure came into play. So I graduated university and I moved to New York City and I took a job in management consulting working for IBM. I think on paper, I had arrived, I had made it. I had the great job, I had the Madison Avenue office, the tailored suits, $300 shoes. I had what success looked like, for a 23 or 24-year-old. So I quickly jumped into the job full of excitement, and that quickly left me. I found myself bouncing around on different projects, realizing that, as an intern, I had been given so much attention, and, people really wanted this person to have a great experience with the company. And then when you started as a, fresh out of college new hire, that level of attention and level of care just kind of disappeared. And I ended up doing, jobs and tasks that were uh, less important, I guess you could say, as it was when I was an intern. So quickly got a bad taste in my mouth for the job and realized I didn't enjoy the travel. I didn't enjoy what I was working on. And there was a very kind of shaky path to promotion and where this job was actually going to lead. So a blessing in disguise. After about 2 years in the job, I got laid off. So after thinking that I had to, finally sharpen the sword enough to get me where I needed to go in life, again, was something that I ran into, uh, a failure. And that one stung a lot. So when I found out I was getting laid off, I made a deal with myself. And I said, look, they gave me a 90-day working notice. So basically, I told myself, at this end of 90 days, if you don't have a job, go on traveling. So I ended up looking as hard as I could. I got to the final round interviews for like 4 or 5 jobs. Felt that I was going to land one of them, but it ended up that I didn't get any of them. So on that day, I remember it was December 6th, 2016. I told myself, we're buying a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia. So that day, I bought a one-way flight from New York City to Bangkok. And so began my Southeast Asian adventure. So after landing in Bangkok, I traveled all over Thailand for a month, then spent a couple of weeks in Laos, and then ended up in Vietnam. In Vietnam, I ended up meeting up with some friends that I had met in Thailand. We ended up buying motorcycles, and we rode from the very northern border of Vietnam to the very southern border of Vietnam. And maybe I'll have to do a separate video on that another time, but that was one of the greatest adventures of my life. But ended up settling on an island in the south of Vietnam called Phu Quoc. And so that's kind of where the next chapter, the next failure, comes into play. So after about a month of living in Phu Quoc, I was kind of getting restless. I was, kind of tired of the backpacker slog, the, going out and partying, living out of my bag, and kind of decided that I wanted to stay around for a little bit longer. So I got really lucky. The owner of the hostel that I was staying at also had a couple of businesses on the island and was looking to kind of reshape an idea that he had. Long story short, a month and a half later, him and I are opening up a cocktail bar in Vietnam. So we had decided to transform this space from a ice cream shop, which he owned, to a cocktail bar with live music. Now, in Vietnam, these cocktail bars were super popular. And at the time, there was this big trend around live, especially acoustic music. So we opened up a live music and cocktail bar, drinking and music, 2 things that I was already pretty good at. So that one fit naturally. For about 6 months, we worked really hard to get the business open, get it up and running, get it branded, get everything staffed, get, everything figured out. So once we were finally out of that first low season, kind of had some harsh realities. I realized that I was working way more than I had in the US. And I also realized that I was doing a lot more taxing work for a lot less money, just on a completely different standard. So I thought, you know what? If I'm going to be working this hard, I want it to be something an idea I'm more invested in rather than just being busy to stay busy. So that was it. I decided to leave Vietnam, go back to the US. Towards the end of my stay in Vietnam, I got really into motorcycles. And so while I was on the way back to the US from Vietnam, I actually purchased two Harley Davidson motorcycles. And instead of flying home and meeting my family, I went to pick up those motorcycles. So I had a grand idea that I was going to start a business buying wrecked motorcycles, fixing them, customizing them, and then turning around and selling them for a profit. And I did that for about a year and a half. I even went to work for Harley Davidson just to learn more about the motorcycles, learn more about the culture. But after about, yeah, I think it was 7 or 8 motorcycles that I did, I decided, you know what? This idea and this business could be really great, but you know what? I don't know if I love it enough to make this something that I really, really want to dedicate the next few years of my life to. Because I realized, you know what? If this doesn't work out, I've just spent a few years in becoming a professional mechanic. And being a motorcycle mechanic was not something that I wanted to do. At the time, it wasn't where my passion was. So again, I found myself down this same path, dedicating myself to something that I thought was a good idea, jumping into it, and then realizing after some time that it's not where my heart was. There was something in the way. So after realizing the motorcycle business wasn't for me, I decided to go back to Vietnam. And I actually got the chance to work on the opening team for a really cool bar, beach club. I was in charge of marketing and sales, but also, a lot of other things, a lot of training, the local staff, and, you know, setting up relationships with different hospitality venues on the island. There was a lot to the job that wasn't just sales and marketing. But did that for around 9 months. And then it got to a point where it was just, there was a lot of outside pressures that were going to make this venue struggle. And yeah, unfortunately, after doing all we could, me and the entire management team was fired. So, after coming in, honestly, I had a great time. While I may look at this as something that was like a failure, it was a ton of fun. We got the responsibility of opening and running a restaurant, working with some really cool and interesting people and people that are still friends to this day. So another little failure in my tally, but you know, not not a bad failure. And I think that that's really one of the big points of this video. So not all failure is bad. You can learn a lot from it. So after that second stint in Vietnam was over, I decided to go back to the US. Really didn't have anything to my name. I think I had about $1,000 to my name. Went back to New York City. I decided, you know what? It's time to go back to work. So I decided I wanted to give sales a try. And that was honestly one of the best things that happened to me. I hit the ground running. I absolutely loved it. And fast forward 3 years later, that same job, gave me the opportunity to live in Europe. And that chapter was really great. It was a, chapter in my life that really made me believe in myself, know that I could be successful at something, and really gave me a lot of confidence that I lacked for so many years after running into so many failures. So, not only are failures not always a bad thing, it means you tried something. But also it makes, these successes that you find in life that much sweeter when you've, done all these different things and you've hit brick walls and maybe you failed, it does make those successes that much sweeter. So, after 5 years of working in sales, I decided to take a year off. I don't think it was that I was tired of working in sales. I wasn't tired of the company I was at. I just personally needed some time to get my life together. I let myself get way overweight. My blood pressure was high. I was in a relationship I was uncertain about. I wasn't too sure about living in Denmark anymore. I just had some things in life I really needed to figure out. And because I was so laser focused on my work, I just didn't take the time to focus on those things. So at the end of 2023, I took an entire year off. And I think for the longest time, I looked at that and thought, you know what? I failed in my career in sales, but not at all. I think that after some time away, it made me realize that I actually really enjoy doing what I do. And then I just needed to take some time to live life and, fix some of the things that I let fall by the wayside while I was so laser focused on doing something else with my life. So, this is where I think society gets failure wrong. We have this idea of what success is supposed to look like, what those Instagram feeds we see look like, what those LinkedIn feeds, all of this social media society created pressure of what success looks like. And when maybe something doesn't pan out, maybe do chalk it up as a failure. Even listening to myself talk here, I've realized that a lot of the things that I view as failures, maybe they aren't failures at all. They're just maybe things in life that didn't work out. And I think that a thing in life that didn't work out is not the same as a failure. So, kind of been a nice little lesson in even in filming this video. I've had a little bit of a life realization. Um, but I think that that is the part that society gets wrong. There is, a lot more that could be gained from something, whether it was a success or a failure. Not everything as is as binary as that. It doesn't have to be. I've learned so many good things along the way. Learned how to speak Vietnamese. Got the chance to live in a bunch of different countries around the world, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. So think about that next time when you think that you or you think that something that you've done is a failure.